One of Transformers' greatest strengths is that if you don't like a particular continuity, there's always likely another continuity that might appeal to you. If you don't like Cyberverse and you want something darker, there's Transformers Prime. If you don't like the action of Transformers Prime, if you think it's too serious and like you want something more light-hearted, there's Transformers Animated. If you want something realistic, there's the Bayverse. If you want something with a solid story, there's the comics. But is the fact that there's all these different universes, is that also Transformers' greatest weakness? This has been on my mind for a little while now, but this video will contain spoilers for Transformers 1. So if you haven't seen the movie, that's your spoiler warning. Don't watch this video or watch it after you've seen the film. Since I've watched Transformers 1, I've been continuing this question in my mind about, is Transformers not necessarily too big, but too contradictory almost? Should we have, and would Transformers function better with just one timeline? Now, when you look at franchises like Star Wars, I know there's the Legends canon and then there's Disney's canon now, but when you generally looked at Star Wars, it was all one continuity. The books, the novels, the games, the films, the shows, there was all sort of one continuity. When you look at like Halo, I know there's a TV show now, which is a different like take on Halo, but the games, the lore, the books, the comics, they're all part of one universe. And when you watch something from start to the end, you see the character's journey and it all makes sense. You only really have to learn it once. Whereas with Transformers, even as a huge Transformers fan and other people who are huge Transformers fans, we get confused and there's a lot of contradictory things. Transformers once tried to be just one big universe with the Align continuity. We had Prime, RID, Rescue Bots, the Align continuity with the games, some comics, some novels, and it was a good go. But there were a lot of inconsistencies, some minor, not some sort of not so minor. For me, I quite liked it, but on other people, I know they look at it like, what the heck went on? Um, it doesn't fit together smoothly. That's what I try and do with my stop motions. I try to basically make it one big story where you can watch from the start and then you finish it at the end, and everything makes sense. The Align continuity sort of tried something like that, but you have G1, but even with G1, you've got so many versions of G1. You've got the show, then you've got the Marvel US comics, then you've got the Marvel UK comics, then you've got the Japanese mangas, then you have some other mangas for G1, then you have multiple alternate realities, like the Deviations comic, which could basically split into its own separate universe, and you just have so many continuities. And even when we tried with the Align continuity to make an established canon, you have, at least now I've seen Transformers 1, you have varying takes on the lore. Because in the Align continuity and a lot what followed, we had 13 primes. In Transformers 1, it follows that same sort of thing. And then the Bayverse came, and then that had 7 primes. But then in the comics of the Bayverse, it was talking about 13 primes. And before you go and say, well, that's the Bayverse, this is happening all over Transformers. In the Align continuity, where there was 13 primes, in the games we had Zeta Prime, and you may see where I'm going with this. We had Zeta Prime, but then obviously you have Sentinel Prime as a separate character. But then, if you looked at the Align continuity, especially the TF Wiki, they list Zeta Prime's full name as Zeta Sentinel Prime. So, is Zeta and Sentinel the same guy? Is he just his own character, but he takes the name Sentinel, kind of like how Megatron took Megatronus? Um, or are they a similar sort of character? But then you look at the IDW comics, and then you have Sentinel Prime, And then when Sentinel goes, Zeta Prime comes in, and they're totally different characters. You see where I'm going with this? In the aligned continuity, we had the 13th Prime, who was, surprise, surprise, he was Optimus Prime. Then in Transformers 1, the members are the same, but the 13th Prime is Zeta Prime. Then you have the units of time, where you have cycles, seconds, astroseconds, Vaughns, Breens, and you look at the TF Wiki units of time, and all these what are the same name, seconds, hours, minutes, but the transformed equivalent. They have the same name. They, depending on the continuity you look at, they mean different things. A cycle could mean a minute in one universe, but a cycle could mean 30 minutes in the next universe, or a cycle could mean a day. You see where I'm going with this? Yeah. Then you have universal singularities. Sideways, Unicron, but then Unicron in some continuities is the planet Earth, but then in other continuities he's not. So I get that there's different universes that want to do different ideas, and that is great. That's, like I said, the good thing about Transformers, that's one of its strengths. If you don't like that, you can go to that universe. And regardless what Hasbro says, whether they confirm this or not, there is technically a multiverse in Transformers. We've seen multiverse in the comics. We've seen it in Cyberverse. We saw it in the Dead Universe. The shows. So there is a multiverse for Transformers out there, and I think sometimes it's good to step into that. If we take Star Wars again, despite Disney and the Legends canon, if we took Star Wars as the main story, we would have comics where Darth Vader would see what happened if he never turned to the dark side, if Padme lived and all that. That would be a little bit of a deep dive into what an alternate universe could look like. But then Disney would never capitalize on that and make a full-blown universe of that. It's just down to that one moment. And I think sometimes it's good like that, because the Anakin story for me is very personal, because it shows the damage of anger, and it shows, not saying I'm going like a youngling killing spree, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's personal because you don't get that. As much as you look into that alternate reality of what happened if Anakin never turned to the dark side, that's not happening. No matter how much he looks into it, no matter how good this comic is, that it's just a peep into an alternate reality, or a vision, or a dream, and the damage is done in Star Wars, and Anakin is never going to see Padme, at least alive. With Transformers, it would be interesting if we had that mystery. If Optimus Prime looked into an alternate universe, or like a mirror or something, and saw the shattered glass universe, and saw himself as this evil entity, and we wanted nothing to do with him. And with that, end it there. So we don't touch upon shattered glass anymore, because it remains that mystery. It has that mystery to it. But then Hasbro capitalizes on Shattered Glass. They make Shattered Glass 1. They're making Shattered Glass 2 comics. All the new figures. And then there's alternate universes. So obviously that starts new Transformers collections, new comics, and full-blown stories of Shattered Glass and stuff like that, where you have to learn the lore on that, and each person's origin story in that is different to what it normally is. Again, these are all really good stories. I'm not trying to bash them. I love all the stories. But what I'm proposing is, would it not be easier just to have a one singular Transformers timeline? Technically we could start at Transformers 1. But I think a lot of people like Transformers 1 because it was different. And I honestly think if they made Transformers 2, it would be cool to see the war start. But people like Transformers 1 because it was different, and I think Transformers 2, maybe they could do something else that was different, where maybe the war never started. Maybe Optimus says, we can still fix this, and Megatron agrees, and the war never starts. And instead, they work together, build a peaceful future after defeating the Quintessons. That would make some fans maybe upset that the war never starts because it's the origin story about how the war starts, but also Transformers 2 could be a very different take, and that's why a lot of people love Transformers 1. See something we've never seen before. So we could have used that continuity, but generally, would it be easier if we just sort of had a clean slate and for once we just said, okay, from going forward, this is the only Transformers continuity, the main one. We're going to start from the beginning and we're going to end whenever it ends and leave it there. Every unit of time going forward means this. Every colour of Energon going forward means this. This person's name stays this way because you've got Swoop, you've got Strafe, you've got Slug, you've got Slag, you've got all the different name changes. Twin, Twin Strike. You see where I'm going. I know there's copyright issues with those names, so sometimes you can't say those names because of copyright or because it's a curse word or whatever, but there's so much contradictory. Again, for us fans, us diehard fans, it's hard enough to look at the continuity and think, why do I make sense of this? But for a new fan, or someone who doesn't know a lore, they're going to be blown away. Because, Transformers 1 was a good starting place to learn about the lore. But, there's so much, so much other stuff to it that makes things complicated. Again, units of time, character names, origin stories. In this, Megatron and Orion were miners. In the comics, Megatron was a miner and then he went to becoming a gladiator. Orion, depending on the story, was a dock worker or a clerk. He was never a miner. I get for the film, because, for the film you've got to make it shorter. The Megatron origin story from IDW, that was 6 issues, and then you had the following issues, Primacy, Monstrosity, Autocracy. You had those, and even with those, I've read how the writers said that even with lots of issues and lots of volumes, you could have really stretched out loads more. It felt like you had loads more to tell. And I get with a movie, you have to make it simpler down for the runtime. I totally get that. But moving forward, it would be make more sense if things weren't contradictory. Just to have a singular timeline of Transformers. It's never going to happen, let's be real. Hasbro could do something like Transformers Prime with the Align continuity, where they try and make it all one big universe. But I don't think it will happen anytime soon. I could be wrong. But I don't think Hasbro will ever do this, because the thing with Transformers is they do a series for, a few years, and then they move on to the new series. Look at Earthspark. Look how quick that's come and gone. It's ending now. Earthspark was not even too long ago when it started, and it's ending, and we're going to get probably a new show. So, you see where I'm going with this, and especially with the comics. You had all the Dreamwave, then you had IDW, which went for a good run, but then IDW rebooted it, then they lost the license, now Skybound's come along, and, eventually when Skybound either lose the license or stop making them, someone else will pick the license up, or there'll be a reboot to continuity, and yeah, just bringing things full circle. That's the beauty of Transformers, because if you don't like the origin story on one, there's another. If you don't like that character traits in that story, there's another story where you might like them. Starscream's a perfect example. If you don't like Baby Starscream, I'm sure you would love Transformers Prime Starscream or Earthspark Starscream Season 1. I'm sure you would like the Armada Starscream. So, yeah, it's his biggest strength, but it's also its biggest weakness because it can get confusing when you look into it. So that's just my thoughts. I wanted to just record this video and get it out there. My Optimus Prime shirt on right now. But let me know what you think. Do you think it would be easy to have a full continuity where it doesn't contradict itself? And I'm not just saying we ignore G1 and Beast Wars and Baby. I'm not saying we ignore them. Like, don't write them off. But I'm just saying, wouldn't it be easier if Transformers was a little bit like Star Wars from the very beginning, where it was just one big story, and you could just buy, the comics, watch the films, the TV show, the games, and you'd have the full story. You wouldn't have to invest in every single piece of media from every single piece of continuity of every piece of alternate timeline. Yeah, you get where I'm going with this. It gets expensive and it gets confusing. Yeah, and mind blowing. So yeah, that's good place to leave it. There's not going to figure off the shelf, but I hope this maybe intrigues you a little bit. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, this is just my thoughts. I'm not saying anything's bad or anything like that. It's just something I want to get out there, something that's been on my mind. If you have any thoughts, please feel free to leave them in the comments. So yeah, if you want to share this video with people who you think will enjoy it, please do. Follow me on Instagram at TMFan1000. Join the Discord, link in the description below. More videos coming soon, like stop motion, stuff like that. And if I don't see you before Halloween, take this as your spooky season and have a happy, safe, spooky Halloween. Thanks, guys. To all one.